webinar session. Before we enter into the webinar session, I would like to share the agenda with you all. The welcome note is given by me and followed by the introduction and context setting by our MD Dr. J Vijay Venkatraman, and followed by the actual webinar session starts with the title Pharmacovigilance of the pill. The speaker for that session is Vidhya Gurusamy, and later we will have the topic going to be discussed on pharmacovigilance for the people, and the speaker is Dr. Shobanaarani, and we'll have this question and answer session, and we'll end with the vote of thanks. So while before entering into the webinar, I would like to share some housekeeping rules. What we want to say to you is this webinar is going to last for 90 minutes. So we asked our co-host only to use the mic, and rest of all of you, the mic will be muted. This we have done to maintain the time factor. And if you have any questions, I request you to use the chat box. And please update your questions, and your questions will be answered by our speakers during the end of the question answer session. And if you have any feedback that you want to share, I request you to share in the to our official email ID info@oviyaMedSafe.com. I will type the email ID in the chat box in a while. And at this time, I welcome Dr. J Vijay Venkatraman to set the context, as I said before. Talking about Dr. J Vijay Venkatraman, and he's a diabetologist, and he's also a PV physician and an entrepreneur with MBA in services management. He already have a 20+ years of combined experience in clinical medicine and as well as in drug safety. He is the first recipient of FPIPA award in India. FPIPA is nothing but Fellow of Pharmaceutical Information and PV Association based out of London. He also serves as Regional Editor India for Global Forum. It's an official publication of DIA. He also serves as an executive committee member of ISCR, and he was the first former chair of PV Council, a branch of ISCR. He's also a former chairman for this IMA headquartered Pharmacovigilance Standing Committee, and he has published several articles and reports. He's a medical author, and as well as he has been invited in several conferences in India across the globe, and he was a speaker in all these events. And recently, he was awarded as Leadership Excellence for his tenure in the PV domain. So let me stop at this time. Let me not take more time, and let me hand over this session to Dr. J Vijay Venkatraman. Sir, over to you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Karthik, for the kind introduction. So, first of all, I take this opportunity to formally welcome all of you to this special webinar, which we have titled as Pharmacovigilance of the Pill for the People. As Karthik rightly mentioned, we are conducting this webinar as a part of the celebrations of Oviya MedSafe's 10th anniversary. So, as you would all appreciate, 10 years is a great milestone, and as a journey, it has been tremendous with several achievements and more learnings than achievements, and a lot of new experiences, and which has actually over a period of time, and the learnings that we have had from the journey, we have also implemented, and we have done our groundwork to implement all the learnings, and from that only good things have happened. We have become a very strong organization with very deep roots, and we have a very strong culture, and as an organization, we have kind of proven our mettle over the years, And none of this would have been possible without the support of all the wonderful team members here. So first of all, I would like to start my talk by thanking all the team members of Oviya MedSafe for all your support, without which we would not have come to this milestone very successfully, and with so much of strings of achievements to our credit. So first, I would like to thank you team for that. And of course, nothing would work but for the support of external well-wishers, which can be our clients, our partners, our solution providers, our suppliers, and our kind of the people from whom we have learned certain things, several business collaborators. And of course, to all of them, I would like to extend my thanks on this special occasion. And last but not the least, to my own colleagues on the board and the shareholders, all the shareholders of Oviya MedSafe, the constant trust they had on me as the founding managing director and CEO, that has actually been a very big shot in the arm for me to continue navigating this journey. And over the years, we have, with the support of everyone, we have built our own model. We have not followed the industry, but we have kind of challenged the industry, and we have developed our own model of lean pharmacovigilance, which we have been able to apply to several of our clients. And we have been very successful in making our clients compliant with the regulations at a very, very cost-effective approach. And we have also made sure that we have, for our team members also, we have made sure that they have a 360-degree perspective learning of pharmacovigilance. Unlike other organizations where they tend to understand and get into only one type of pharmacovigilance activity, we have made sure that we have had, we have been able to give this experience to our team members. And these are some of the things which have actually set us apart. And I see that I can proudly say that with the number of clients we have today and the type of, more specifically, the type of work that we are doing, the more consulting and advisory type of work that we are doing, as opposed to the run-of-the-mill routine outsourcing activities, that puts us a class apart in amongst the names we have in the market. And I would also like to thank our international collaborators, our QPPVs, and all other business collaborators outside India as well, without whom we would not be this successful today. So that having said, now let me come to the context of this webinar, why we are conducting this. So as part of 10th anniversary celebration, we could have actually had it as a real celebration of fun and frolic. But instead of that, we thought, given this COVID scenario also, in fact, COVID scenario has made us understand that it is not about location. It is about the kind of people, the kind of network that you want to get your message across to. Because until then, like we having virtual events was not very common. And even if we had, they were not having this much patronage during those pre-COVID days. But in COVID, what we have understood is that wherever you have, you're organizing something, it is possible through Zoom and other such platforms. You can get, even if you are having 100 attendees, all the 100 participants are quite relevant to you. And it is technically possible for every stakeholder or everybody who could be related to this particular talk to be able to listen to it. Like whether they are doing it or not, it's a different thing. But regardless of the time and other constraints, if someone wants to really be part of an event which is relevant to them, they can do that. And that is the beauty of this virtual world. And I think all of us have learned this only during the COVID time, even before we knew that, but still that learning actually has kind of came into public acceptance only during the COVID times. So what this meant is that we thought we could have options. We could have several real events organized now that COVID is kind of waning away, and touch wood, it should wane away completely. That's what we all wish. And so since this is the case now, we were even contemplating why not we have different kinds of events in different cities across India. Then we realized like we will have some people who are relevant, many people who are not relevant, and kind of it's going to be just a felicitation of individuals. But we thought we should celebrate Oviya MedSafe by celebrating pharmacovigilance, the science that we all are so passionate about. Without celebrating that, what kind of celebration will it be to celebrate our 10th anniversary? So that's with all these thoughts only suddenly we came up with this thought of why not have a virtual colloquium where there is so much of passion, so much of learning, so much of interest in all members of Oviya MedSafe's team. And why not we show to our well-wishers, to our audience, like as a sample of what pharmacovigilance is all about and why we love pharmacovigilance so much. There is so much in it. It's not merely yet another business element or yet another science, but there is so much of humanitarian, ethical viewpoints to it. And it is a fascinating regulatory science as well, and it is something that actually is directly related to each and every individual who takes a medicine at any point of time in their life, which is practically all of us. So why not we talk about that? We initiate a dialogue, and that dialogue is let it be focused on kind of the pharmacovigilance as a discipline itself, but let's not make it too complicated that only people who are connoisseurs of the subject can understand that, or let's not make it too fundamental as a training program or something where we are going to teach something which is available already. If you Google, you can find 200 presentations on pharmacovigilance, and we are not going to touch upon that. We thought of giving two different perspectives, which I believe will be interesting not only for entry-level professionals in PV, but also seasoned professionals who would want to hear a different perspective. So we thought we will talk about two aspects. Why pharmacovigilance is conducted, pharmacovigilance of the pill, how it is conducted. Like when we say pill, we actually imply any medication for that matter. But the word pharmacovigilance for the pill and of the pill and for the people was quite attractive, and so we chose this as a topic. But it's not necessarily only for the pills; it is also for all kinds of medications. So whatever pharmacovigilance of the pill that we are doing, it is ultimately for the people. So we thought of bringing in two different perspectives to finally kind of weave this message around and pass it on to the audience as a take-home message. And of course, we have tried to make it as interesting as possible with examples and as less as dry theory as possible. And we have also made sure that we are giving perspectives. We are not giving some information which is merely some information which is there already in the public domain. Not that even if there is something, what we are doing is we are trying to give a perspective of that, so that at the end of this session, your thought is provoked on what more can we do in pharmacovigilance. Maybe today we are not talking about that topic, but what all has pharmacovigilance achieved for all of us? That is the message that we will bring across at the end of this session. And I hope all of you will find some value in this session, regardless of your experience level in pharmacovigilance. And that said, I would like to specifically thank some of our very well-known colleagues in the industry who are all in very high positions in pharmacovigilance, who have very kindly joined this webinar, and believing that you will have some message. So that's so kind of you, because with your vast experience in PV, I think many of these aspects you already know, but I still believe this the perspectives that we are trying to bring in, and the debate that we are trying to stimulate, that will give you some kind of a value addition still. So with this, I would like to complete my context setting. And now I would like to take this opportunity to go to the speakers of the day. So actually today we have two speakers. As I said, the title is Pharmacovigilance of the Pill and for the People. So that is the whole title, and it is the message itself is there in it. But how pharmacovigilance of the pill is done, that one person will be speaking, followed by how that is resulting in tangible benefit for the people, that another person will be speaking. So who are these persons? Like two of my very well experienced and distinguished colleagues in Oviya MedSafe. Dr. Shobana will be talking about the second topic, for the people, and the first topic will be by Vidhya Gurusamy. So now let me first introduce Vidhya. So Vidhya Gurusamy is has a master's in pharmacology, and she comes with MPharm in pharmacology with almost a decade of experience, including her previous experience in other domains. But in pharmacovigilance, what I'm quite proud to say is that she has joined pharmacovigilance through Oviya MedSafe as an entry-level associate, and today she holds the designation of Senior Drug Safety Manager. And for almost of the past 10-year history of Oviya MedSafe, she has been there for the past 8 years, and that makes her a very kind of a very potential and ideal person for speaking about this topic. From whatever is her experience is also Oviya MedSafe's experience, because she has traveled so much with the organization. And so we are very glad to hear from Vidhya, pharmacovigilance of the pill. So over to you, Vidhya, and we like after hearing from you, we would like to, of course, ask you to answer some questions as well. So now over to Vidhya.
Thank you, sir. So, my screen.
We are not able to see your screen yet. Yeah, it's just coming. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for wonderful introduction about myself, sir. And once again, I'm welcoming all to attend this webinar under the topic of pharmacovigilance of the pill for the people. So as sir mentioned in this presentation, we are going to discuss about how pharmacovigilance helps to protect the pill. Followed by Dr. Shobanaarani will explain how the pharmacovigilance helps the people to protect the adverse drug reaction, which is associated with the medicinal product. So let's enter into the presentation. This is our formal disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed are personal and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Oviya MedSafe or any organization. The logos and trademarks used are for educational and awareness purpose only, and there is no intention of copyright violation. So you may get the question, why do we need medicine? So we are all aware that medicine can treat disease and improve your health. So you need to take medicine of some point in your life. You may need to take medicine every day, or you may need to take medicine if you want. So either way, you want to make sure that your medicine are safe and that will help you get better. So next we'll come to the different formulation of medicines. So you may came across all of this formulation. So medicine can be available in tablet, syrup, capsules, injections, ointment, spray. So a lot of formulations are available in the market. So all the allopathic medicines are made up of chemical substance. Generally, we used to call that as a drug. So what does mean by drug? So according to pharmacology, it's a drug is a chemical substance that is used to treat, cure, prevent, or diagnose a disease or to promote well-being. And drug can be inhaled, injected, smoked, consumed, and it is absorbed via batch on the skin or dissolved under the tongue. So it causes physiological changes in the body. In that way, the drug is producing effectiveness to the body. It will help to cure our illness. So you may get the question, can medicine be a risk? Of course. But before entering into the core topic, you must understand what is meant by risk. So the risk of medicine are chances that something unwanted, unexpected could happen to you when you use the medicine. So here I'm dividing this risk into two parts. One is serious, another one is non-serious. So generally, risk could be less serious also. If you're taking a medication, it may cause less serious side effects like upset your stomach, or you may get vomiting, or you may get some allergic reaction to your skin. Or sometimes it will be very serious like liver damage. I'll give you an example. If you're taking painkiller for a longer period of time, so it definitely will affect your kidney as well as your liver. So for that reason, the physician will not suggest to take the painkiller for a longer period of time. They will suggest to take the painkiller only for a shorter period of time and very minimal dose. Even though if you have a mild knee pain, they will suggest to take the medicine whenever you want, because they want to avoid the serious side effects that could be associated with the medicinal products. So in that scenario, you may get another question in your mind. So do all medications have risk? The answer is no medicine is without risk. Many medications have side effects as well as warning and drug interactions. So generally the drug-drug interaction is very common because the people used to take a lot of medications nowadays. If the person have a hypertension as well as the diabetic, the person have to take definitely two different medication. It may cause drug interaction to the patient. Some other point, the drug will interact with the food and it will produce unwanted side effects also. So these are all the things that's very common in medicine. So it is important to understand your treatment as well as expected results of your treatment. Then if you have experienced any unwanted side effect from your treatment, you have to go for alternative medical options. So here as a patient, they could not decide the alternate medical options. If they have experienced any side effects, that should be properly discussed with the healthcare professional, means it's a treating physician. As a physician, is the right person to decide whether the patient needs alternative medical option or not. So these are all the precautionary measures the people have to take to avoid the risk associated with the medicines. So, okay, next it's come to the core topic of the presentation, how you can reduce the risk of medicine. So the answer is pharmacovigilance. Pharmacovigilance is the beating heart of therapeutics. Without it, there could be no way to assess the effectiveness of medicine in comparison to their adverse effects. Generally, it's a pharmacovigilance rigorously monitor the benefit-risk profile of the medicines, and it helps to improve patient care, and it is trying to reduce the adverse effect which is associated with the medicinal products. So next we'll come to the definition of pharmacovigilance. This definition is derived by the WHO. The pharmacovigilance means it's a science and activities. It helps to detection, assessment, understanding, and prevention of adverse effect or any other drug-related problems. In Greek, pharmakon means it's a drug. In Latin, vigilare means it's a to keep watch. If you're colloquially say pharmacovigilance means it's a drug safety monitoring. Okay. Let's come to the interesting part of the pill. So journey of the pill. So here I have divided this journey of the pill into 4 different segments. One is discovery phase. Second one is preclinical phase. It's an animal testing phase. Third one is clinical trial phase. Fourth one is commercial phase. So let's discuss one by one. We'll come to the discovery phase. Generally, the scientists, if they have identified any disease which affects the society, then they will pick that. Then they will identify the valid pharmaceutical target to fight with that disease. So generally, they will derive so many targeted molecules from which they will identify the one or two targeted moiety to fight with the disease. So this process is called as a lead optimization. So once the lead optimization has been performed by the scientists, they will go for a preclinical development. So here they will use the animals to test the medicine's toxicity. Generally, in animal studies will be performed in two different ways. One is in vitro studies, another one is in vivo studies. So here they are identifying whether this investigational medicinal product have any toxicity like carcinogenicity, mutagenicity, and teratogenicity. If the targeted moiety does not have any of this toxicity, means they will go for filing investigational new drug application. So here the regulatory authority will sit together, they will review all the reports. If they confirmed if this product does not have much toxicity, means they will allow to perform clinical trials. Once the investigational medicinal product enter into the clinical trial, means the industry will generally use to conduct 4 phases of clinical trials: phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. So overall in clinical trial phase, they are identifying the safety, efficacy of the investigational medicinal product. Once this clinical trial has been done by the industry, they'll go for an application of new drug application. So here again, the regulatory authority will sit together and they will review all the clinical trial reports. If they have concluded risk is acceptable manner and benefit is higher than compared to the risk, means they will allow to go for phase 4, that is called commercial phase, or it is a post-marketing surveillance phase. So in this phase only, you can able to identify the real phase of the medicinal product. So how? So here the pharmacovigilance is helping to identify the real phase of the medicine. So generally the regulatory authorities are suggesting the industry to perform few pharmacovigilance activities to collect the safety efficacy of the medicinal product. It starts from ADR reporting. It's collection and reporting of ADR on time to the regulatory authority, from which they have to prepare signals. And based on all the reports, they have to prepare periodic report that should be submitted to the authority on time. If it is required, the company have to perform post-authorization safety studies. So from all of this, we can clearly know the positive and negative phase of drug. So generally, this journey of the pill, it takes almost 12 to 15 years. As a pharma company, they have to invest $1 billion to develop the single medicinal product to the society. So hope you enjoyed this journey of the pearl. Next, we'll move into the part of stakeholders. So while talking about the stakeholders, so these 4 stakeholders are important persons: patient, healthcare professionals, regulatory authorities, and pharma companies. These 4 stakeholders are pillars of pharmacovigilance. So here in this presentation, I'm going to highlight regulatory authorities and pharma companies' role in pharmacovigilance. And patients and healthcare professionals will be detailedly discussed by Dr. Shobanaarani in next presentation. However, I would like to share few points how the stakeholders are playing important role in pharmacovigilance. So first of all, I want to take the regulatory authority. So the regulatory authorities are we have international regulatory authorities as well as national and regional specific regulatory authorities. So here the regulatory authorities will drive the rules and regulations of pharmacovigilance. So that should be performed, that should be followed by the every pharma companies. So here the regulatory authorities will evaluate the pharma companies' reports and they will conclude whether the benefit is outweigh the risk or not. They will check the benefit risk profile of the medicine. While coming to the pharma companies, their responsibility is they have to collect all the safety information which is associated with the medicinal product. That should be properly communicated to the regulatory authorities. While talking about the patient, as my suggestion is, as a patient, they must report their adverse event to their treating physician. That is a very important step. And the healthcare professional rollers, they have to convey all the reported adverse drug reaction to us. That should be forwarded to every pharma company, because that could be helpful to provide the right medicine to the people. So this is a small introduction about the stakeholders. We'll enter into the core topic of the presentation. So while talking about the stakeholders, you may get the question, who monitors the product safety? So as we discussed in the journey of the pill, the product safety monitoring is an ongoing process that starts from the developmental stage and it is continuous as long as product in the market. So in that scenario, the clinical trial, in generally clinical trial, the healthy volunteers as well as the patients will involved. So from the moment itself, pharmacovigilance starts. So it starts from developmental stage and it is continuous as long as product in the market. Then this process is closely monitored by the pharma companies and it is regulated by the national, regional, specific regulatory authorities. So the answer for this question is the pharma companies and the regulatory authorities are playing an important role in monitoring product safety. So next we'll come to the very interesting topic, what drives industry PV practices? So I have provided answer in 3 different segments. One is international guidelines, another one is national, regional specific regulations and guidelines. Third one is company specific documents. So we'll discuss one by one. International guidelines. What I want to say here is ICH. We are all aware about the International Conference of Harmonization and SIOM's group, Council for International Organization of Medical Science. This both group have given, it's a very elaborated pharmacovigilance guideline. So most of the regional and national specific authorities are derive their pharmacovigilance guideline from this ICH as well as SIOMS. So while coming to the national, I have given few examples here. We are all familiar with EMA, European Medicine Agency. They have derived the good pharmacovigilance practice guidelines from ICH. If the company is marketing in Europe, they have to strictly follow GVP regulations. And while talking about the US FDA, they are following 21 CFR Part 11 guidelines. So if the company is marketing in US, they are strictly have to follow 21 CFR rules and regulations. And while India, it's a CEDESCO, it's a Central Drug Standard Control Organization and Pharmacovigilance Program of India has jointly derived the guideline called Pharmacovigilance Guidance Document for MAHO pharmaceutical products. So in these guidelines, they have specified a lot of pharmacovigilance obligations. So that should be followed by the pharma companies in India. Then, not but not least, it's a company-specific documents. Company-specific document means it's a procedural documents that is maintained by the quality management system of the company. So these documents are standard operating procedures, work instructions, guides, and conventions. So these documents must be followed by the PV professional, those who are all involved in the pharmacovigilance activities of the company. So if the company is marketing the whole of this, concluding this, if the company is marketing the product in different countries, different region means they have to follow the pharmacovigilance rules and regulations according to the regulatory requirement. So here they can't keep it as a common for all the authorities. They have to perform the PV activities in slightly different manner to fulfill the regulatory, national, regional regulatory specifications. But not least, the company have to maintain proper quality management system with the procedural documents to comply with the internal process of pharmacovigilance. So next we'll come to the interesting point. It's a pharmacovigilance obligations for pharma industry. The first one is preparation and maintenance of pharmacovigilance system master file. So pharmacovigilance system master file means it's a detailed description of the pharmacovigilance system. According to the regulatory authority, the company have to maintain elaborated pharmacovigilance system to collect the safety information associated with their medicinal products. So what kind of system they have, that should be properly documented in this document. This document is a live document and it should be ready and it should be available at any time and it should be shown to the regulators. If they are coming for an inspection, the first document the company has to show is PSMF. Then important obligation is the literature monitoring. Generally, the literature monitoring will be performed in weekly basis or monthly basis. Some authority wants to perform this process in weekly, and some authority wants to perform this process on monthly basis also. As the same way, some authorities are suggesting to use single database like a PubMed. It is sufficient for them. Or some authorities are suggesting to use one or more database to collect the safety information available in the literature. So along with this literature, they must maintain some medical information team to collect the safety information from consumers, patients, and healthcare professionals. So these are all the mandatory system of the pharma companies. And so once the information has been collected, means they have to collate and they have to analyze areas associated with that medicinal product. If the company have came across any areas, that should be properly processed and it should be submitted to the regulatory authority on time. Generally, if it is a serious case, means it should be notified to the authority within 15 calendar days. And if it is a non-serious case, means it should be notified to the 30 calendar days or 90 calendar days according to the regulatory requirements. Next, it's an important process of signal management. The signal management is helpful to identification of known and unknown facts about the medicinal product. So how they will perform is, they will collect all the ICSR and they will identify the signal. Means it's like if non-serious event, it's become serious, or if any changes in the characteristics of the medicinal product, that could be easily found out by signal management. So then all this information, ICSR, signals, everything must be collated, and the company have to prepare PSUR, that is called periodic safety update reports. And they have to submit this document to the regulatory authorities according to the timelines, because the PSUR timeline will vary country to country. Next, it's a RMP. So while preparing the PSUR, we are doing the risk-benefit analysis. So as a medical reviewer of the company, they are deciding that if the benefit is benefit and risk-benefit balance, the risk is unacceptable manner, means they have to go for a preparation of RMP to minimize the risk which is associated with that medicinal product. Then these are all the documents must be submitted to the regulatory authorities. And this risk management, while preparing the risk management, generally we used to provide a lot of risk minimization measures that should be properly communicated to all the stakeholders, like patients, healthcare professionals, as well as consumers. So these are all the important pharmacovigilance obligation that should be followed by every pharma companies. Okay. So the next one is, how do regulatory authority monitor industry? So here the answer is audit as well as inspection. Audit is divided into two types. It is an internal audit and external audit. So internal audit is conducted by the QA department of the company. Here the QA designators are responsible to conduct this internal audit to check compliance with internal company procedure, like standard operating procedures, work instruction, guides, and conventions, perfectly followed by all the pharmacovigilance professionals, all the pharmacovigilance personnel involved in the PV activity in the organization. So they will check. Then they will go for a compliance monitoring preparation. They will go for a COPPA findings, everything. And then while coming to the external audit, here this audit will be called as a third-party audit, or it is a client audit. So the client will come to the company, they will check whether the company have an efficient PV system or not. That is called as an external audit. So while talking about the inspection, I have divided this inspection into two parts. One is routine inspection, another one is targeted inspection. Routine inspection means generally the regulatory authority auditors will come to the auditors or inspectors will come to the company. They will check whether the company have a proper PV system or not. That will be the routine inspection. When the auditors will come for a targeted inspection, means if the company is continuously delaying to submit the ICSR, PSUR, RMP, or they are withdrawing the product suddenly, or if they are not responding to the regulatory authority question, means it will trigger the regulators. Then they will come for a targeted inspection. So what is the outcome of this inspection and audit? It's a findings. It's a major, minor, and critical findings. Minor means it's a simple weakness in their one-off PV process. Major means it's a weakness, significant weakness in one or more pharmacovigilance process. Critical means it's a complete weakness of their pharmacovigilance system. So in that scenario, they will categorize it as a minor, major, and critical. So auditors and regulators has given this finding means the company have to prepare CAPA. That should be prepared. It should be submitted to the authority people on time. Then they will come for an inspection follow will be done by the auditors to close out this CAPA. So in this way, the regulatory authorities are monitoring the industry PV obligations. Okay, so what will happen if recommendation of action by regulatory authorities? So here, if risk is outweighing the benefit means the regulatory authority wants the company to suspend or withdraw the medicinal product, or they will give restriction to the approved indication and population. They won't allow to use the risk higher product in the children and elder and pregnant and breastfeeding mothers. So here they put a lot of restriction to the indication. Then they will suggest to prepare risk minimization activities if the risk is acceptable and preventable manner. If it is acceptable, they can suggest to prepare the RMP, or if it is an unacceptable manner, they will go for a suspension or withdrawal. Then they will suggest to update the product label. In especially warnings and contraindication section, we have to update the new safety information. And if the information is not sufficient to take the decision means, they will suggest the company to conduct the post-authorization safety studies to collect more safety information about the medicinal products. So these are all the general recommendations will be taken by the regulatory authority after submission of all the reports by the pharma companies. Okay, so it's an important question. What if industry doesn't comply? Non-compliance may lead to serious damage to corporate image. A non-compliant company may face penalties by regulatory bodies, product recalls, suspension or withdrawal, and restriction to use. So to concluding my presentation, pharmacovigilance is for the patient. Yes, completely agreed. But performing proper pharmacovigilance, it protects the drug maker from regulatory and legal implications. So thank you for listening my presentation.
Thank you for taking us through this excellent journey of a product, Vidhya. And as you have rightly titled in one of the slides, it's a journey of the pill. So I think in a way you have clearly taken us through the journey of the pill. Maybe you can unshare your screen for a moment.
Yes, sir.
So I think it all came out very well. Like you explained the key activities, what is performed in the industry, why it needs to be performed, who mandates that, and if it is not done, what is the implication. All that came out very well at a high level. Of course, if you talk about examples for each and every slide that you said, then it will actually keep going on and on. And within the given 20 minutes, I think you did an extraordinary job. So before, I will finally sum up at the end after Dr. Shobana's presentation as well. So before that, do any of the co-hosts want to add any point to Vidhya? Please feel free to speak.
Thank you, Vidhya. Thank you, sir. Good evening, all. This is Indu, Associate Manager, Oviya MedSafe. So I want to highlight on the company-specific documents mentioned by Vidhya. So the company-specific documents includes the standard operating procedures, work instructions, guides, service level agreements, safety data exchange agreements, and so on. Mainly speaking about the standard operating procedures, work instructions, and guides, these are version control and they are routinely updated. So all these documents are maintained and they're coordinated by the QMS, that is the quality management system of the organization. And it is done in order to meet the regulatory requirements, as well as helps in improving the efficiency of pharmacovigilance activities. So this is a continuous cycle, like starting from the quality planning, and then it comes to the adherence, then the quality control, and finally the quality improvement. So here I wanted to share that quality management system and the quality assurance, which is being an independent department, are very important for the industry. So thank you.
Thanks, Indu. I think that's a really meaningful value addition, because we didn't specifically speak about that, although in the Vidya did make a mention of the audit aspect, audit and inspection. The audit and inspection is only a kind of a method to verify the QMS, but actually constructing the QMS itself and maintaining it, that itself is a separate activity. And you have rightly pointed that out. The role of QA is phenomenal in the context of PV, which is so prone to inspection. And I mean, PV is all about compliance, isn't it? And what compliance are we talking about when we don't have the proper scales in place? So the QMS actually defines the scales against which we are evaluated. So that's a good point that you added. Thank you, Indu. Any other points?
Yes, sir. I would like to add. Thanks, Sindhu. Good evening, everyone. I'm Kavya, pharmacovigilance specialist from Oviya MedSafe. Here, I would like to add few points regarding unsolicited and solicited report. As we are well aware of unsolicited and solicited reports, here unsolicited report covers spontaneous reports, that is from healthcare professional, patient and consumer, and also literature reports and reports from other sources, for example, press, internet or digital media. Whereas solicited reports would cover organized data collection systems, which includes clinical trials, non-interventional studies, registries, other patient support and disease management program. In both unsolicited and solicited reports, here causality plays a major role. So what is meant by causality? So causality assessment is a method used to estimate the strength of relationship between suspected and adverse reaction. In case of unsolicited report, if the event is spontaneously reported, even if the relation is unknown, it meets the definition of adverse reaction. Therefore, all spontaneous reports submitted to healthcare professionals, patients, or consumers will meet the criteria for expedited reporting. In this scenario, whereas for safety reporting, that is solicited report, we should have an appropriate causality assessment to consider whether they have to meet the criteria for expedited reporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Kavya. I think that's also a very valuable point, because yeah, causality assessment is one step. Again, if we touch upon that, although Shobana will be talking from a physician's perspective, we may not be able to cover causality assessment in detail. As you know, we can talk about that for a day. There is so much in that. But in brief, what you have touched upon, I really appreciate the point, because traditionally we tend to speak as if that in the post-marketing scenario, everything is kind of causality is implied, and you assume that in every scenario in a post-marketing situation that it is considered deemed related to the event and suspected adverse drug reaction. All that is fine, but you also highlighted that point that it is not necessarily so in the real context, because even in the post-marketing scenario, we have organized data collection programs. In fact, even for established drugs, you can still do a clinical trial for a different indication or for whatever. So then it still becomes solicited. And there are several other things like market research programs, patient support programs, and any kind of organized data collection program. The data that you get from it is considered solicited, and therefore you cannot say that it has deemed causality. And therefore that causal relationship, as much as it is important in clinical trials, it is equally important in others such solicited reporting scenarios in the post-marketing aspect as well. So that we should have in mind while analyzing safety data. So while clinical trial data is always solicited, post-marketing data is not always spontaneous. So that's the key point. I think it will be very helpful for the younger professionals in PV. Thanks for bringing that out. So I think for want of time, we'll move to the next session. So now we've talked about pharmacovigilance of the pill, how pharmacovigilance is performed as part of the industry obligations and all that, mainly in the industry, how it is done, and all that we have seen. And we have also added some perspectives to it. And so now, ultimately, the question comes like, why we have to do all this? Okay, industry, if you ask them, they would say it is a legal mandate, it's a regulatory mandate, so we are doing it. But finally, what for we are doing it? Why would somebody do all this? So ultimately, the answer is that it is all because we value human life, and that is the purpose for which we are doing all that. So ultimately, the patient is at the the beneficiary at the end of it. In fact, the whole concept of pharmacovigilance, what we are trying to make is, we are trying to make the patient more safe for the drug, and the drug more safe for the patient. Both ways you can say that. And that way, how it actually impacts the patients. And sometimes we from the industry, when we keep on looking at various aspects pertaining to the day-to-day targets and all that, submission of the PSUR and all that, when we are loaded with work, we tend to forget something that we should appreciate ourselves for. That is the human life that we are protecting by all our indirect actions. Sometimes it is so easy when you are a frontline healthcare professional, you save a life and you have the benefit. You have the satisfaction you have the benefit of the satisfaction that in front of your eyes, you are able to see that your actions are actually helping somebody become better. Unfortunately, in pharmacovigilance, we are doing that all the time, but probably we will not be able to see that. The patient who is a beneficiary of each and every report that we are writing, maybe somewhere somewhere in the world, and we may not even get to meet that person in our life at all. So that's the biggest beauty of pharmacovigilance, I would always say. And ultimately, in all this exists, all these steps exist for the purpose of the patient. And so let's talk about that perspective, and how actually pharmacovigilance began, all started, and how what pharmacovigilance actually has achieved in terms of protecting the patient. We will have Dr. Shobana to speak with us. So, as I mentioned earlier, Dr. Shobanaarani is an MBBS graduate, and following that, she has a master degree in MD in pharmacology, and she has almost a decade of medical experience, which includes 3 years of experience in an ADR monitoring center in the medical college when she was doing her post-graduation in pharmacology, where she has that experience of working in an ADR monitoring center under the PVPI. And with Oviya MedSafe, for the past 3+ years, she has been infusing medical thinking into our operations. And we have been glad to have her as to lead the separate department of medical safety, which we created after she joined. And we now have a wonderful medical function within Oviya MedSafe, which she has, over the years, she has perfected. So we are very glad to have you with us, Shobana. So please enlighten us with your presentation on pharmacovigilance for the people, followed by some interactions and then some questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the warm welcome. So, good evening to everyone present here, and a warm welcome for attending this session, which is the pharmacovigilance of the pill for the people today. So, is my screen visible to everyone?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So straight away coming to the topic. So since Vijay sir has already made a platform for me and had set the context, but I would say, so Vidya has been speaking about pharmacovigilance has been protecting the pharma industries from the legal and regulatory implications. But I would say pharmacovigilance, yes, always protects pharma industries from all the legal and regulatory implications and complaints. But I would say pharmacovigilance also protects the product, and in turn, the beneficiary of all these activities will be the people. So I will start with that. And this is the official disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed are personal and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Oviya MedSafe or any organization. The logos and trademarks used are for educational and awareness purposes only, and there is no intention of copyright violation. So first, we'll start with the history of pharmacovigilance, how it all started. So we think that pharmacovigilance is a decade or 2 decades old, but actually pharmacovigilance is a little more older than we think. That is, it is almost 150-year-old, but there is a lot of lack of awareness regarding pharmacovigilance even now, which has termed its infancy. So the first known cases would be the Hannah Grunner case, which is in 1848, where this Hannah Grunner, when she was given the routine in anesthesia with chloroform, she died in the course of the treatment. And then there was nothing like ADR reporting, but this was all published or notified to the fellow doctors by the doctor or the anesthetist who performed this. So in 1893, so Lancet initiated a foundation. So this foundation, what it did was it started collecting informations or notifications regarding side effects of the drugs. So since there was no ADR reporting, so they started these notifications, which was given by the fellow doctors. So that's how PV started in the early days. But a very serious or very profound foundation started after the sulfanilamide tragedy in 1937. So the sulfanilamide elixir, as we all know, was improperly prepared. That is, the solvent diethylene glycol was not properly incorporated with the drug. So this caused poisoning, like this moss poisoning, and this caused death of more than 100 people. And these people, this triggered the all the regulators around the world. So this happened in US. So mainly the Food, Drug and Cosmetic Act in the US, the committee requested all the or mandated all the pharma companies to perform animal safety tests and provide animal safety data even before giving the drug to the patients or the humans. So that's when the animal testing started. So even in animal testing, we did not have enough information. That is, even then, there was no thing called tetragenicity or mutagenicity testing. It was like the basic efficacy and safety data testing. So if this is not enough, then what happened next was what the breakthrough for pharmacovigilance. So the thalidomide tragedy. So as we all know, thalidomide was in market in around 50 countries from 1956 as a tranquilizer, that is a sleeping pill. But in 1960, Dr. William McBride, he discovered that this can be used for morning sickness in pregnant women. So he started prescribing it, and in this was also widely practiced in all around the globe. So everywhere, physicians or the obstetricians, they started prescribing thalidomide. And then, so all the pregnant women who took thalidomide, they delivered babies with severe malformations, and which we call phocomelia. So then William McBride, he, so this is not like sulfanilamide where only hundreds and to hundreds of patients have been affected, but it is like thousands and thousands of mother have been taking this, and all of them have been delivering so such kind of children or malformed babies. So this triggered William McBride to analyze this, and he found that only after thalidomide did phocomelia happen. So this resulted in the withdrawal of thalidomide from the market. But as I said earlier, did this stop thalidomide from the market? No. So everyone knew that a simple step was enough for effectively managing the risk, which is contraindication of contraindicating the use of thalidomide in pregnant and lactating mothers. So this, after this, there was no phocomelia case at all. So this triggered that further studies in thalidomide, which resulted in thalidomide being approved for 2 other purposes, which is because of the anti-inflammatory effect and also the anti-angiogenesis effect of thalidomide. That is in Hansen's disease and multiple myeloma. So we can say that apart from the legal and regulatory implications, PV also protects the industry that is of the product by having the hard discovered product being in the market, not being withdrawn. So that's, and in turn, the beneficiaries would be ultimately the patient who had a very valuable treatment choice added to their some of the rare conditions. So what was the direct result of thalidomide incident was in US, after the thalidomide incident, there's a Federal for Food, Drug and Cosmetic Act required both safety and efficacy data. So before that, it was only efficacy data, but now they also mandated the safety and efficacy data in human participants. And in UK, so the direct result was when only after thalidomide, this proper ADR monitoring started. So UK, they started this yellow card scheme, which is continuously followed now. And also in WHO, in 1968, they started following this international drug monitoring, which is now even carried out by the Uppsala Monitoring Center. So this is the start of PV. So I would also I would like to touch upon this drug development for only one point, where Vidya said that, rightly said that the safety monitoring, which is PV, starts from the clinical phase. That is, once the drugs are consumed by the human participants. But the safety and efficacy are already tested and proved in the clinical phase. Then why pharmacovigilance, all the process like area monitoring and signal is followed in the post-marketing phase, in the commercial phase? So why is the big question. So I would like to answer it with one thing, because the product which is in the market, which approved for the market, when it is tested, it is only tested in some hundreds and thousands of population, whereas in clinical practice, that is in the practical scenario, it is thousands and millions of people will be taking that medicine. And in clinical trials, it will be in a shorter duration for a very with very stringent inclusion and exclusion criteria, excluding many of the population, many of the concomitant drugs which have taken. So we do not have information during the trial regarding the special populations like pregnancy, lactating period mothers, or the effect on pediatric and elderly population, or effect with the chronic disease management, that is drugs taken for chronic diseases, and also the drug interactions, which plays a major part. So these information, for many of the drugs, even today, these informations are mostly collected through proper monitoring of the drugs during the clinical practices, that is after approval. So saying that, we can say that only the tip of the iceberg is what is known. So the rest is always a continuous process. So we can say PV is a continuous process till the end of the drug cycle. So with this, I would also like to give some of the known and new informations and known examples where PV protected people from harmful effects of drugs and harmful drugs from being in the market for their consumption. So we can say that a medicine labeled safe for clinical use after trials, we can say it is safe after trials, but it is still found to be dangerous. So one such example is rofecoxib. We all know rofecoxib was an NSAID which was used for osteoarthritis and other types of arthritis and acute pain. So it was launched in 1999. But the following 5 years was what happened was in the following 5 years, there were lots and lots of like thousands and thousands of cardiac events being reported for this, even deaths due to cardiac events. So the main cardiac event being myocardial infarction. So around 88,000 to 140,000 cardiac events were reported, and all these analyzed later revealed that there was a causal relationship between rofecoxib and these events. And finally, what the pharma company which marketed the drug did was it voluntarily withdrew the drug, so that many such events are prevented and many patients are prevented from the harmful effects. And one other example is rimonabant, which is a recent thing, that is a decade ago. In 2006, this rimonabant was actually approved for obesity and overweight patients. That is mainly for pathological obesity or in obese patients where weight cannot be reduced through diet and exercise. So this rimonabant being a cannabinoid receptor inhibitor. So this, what happened was it had a lot of benefit during the clinical trial, that it was approved. So 10% of weight loss and a drastic improvement in the HDL level, HDL cholesterol level, approved the drug to the market launch. But during the post-marketing period, it was, as I said, all the population started using it with all other drugs. Then there were lots of cardiovascular deaths, lots of psychiatric disorders, which included severe depression, and also gastrointestinal disorders, which are so high that it caused the regulatory to mandate the withdrawal of the drug from the market. So rimonabant was prevented to be marketed from Jan 2009. So this is also not in the treatment. So there are lots and lots of drugs which have been even for anti-obesity drugs which have come to the market, but because of the increased risks, many of them have been withdrawn from the market because of the risk. And all these are possible only due to the continuous safety monitoring of these drugs. So with this, I would also like to touch upon the risk measures which are taken through, the risk minimization measures which are taken through pharmacovigilance. So everybody would be wondering, even the physicians would be wondering, what is happening to the adverse effects which are being reported. So all these, as Vidya mentioned rightly, all these are being processed by a pharma industry or by a regulatory and analyzed. And finally, what the regulatory does is that it gives the safety information. It communicates the safety information through many methods, one of them which is the drug safety alert. And this is one example from the PVPI. So this is a drug safety alert in the newsletter. So this is how it is communicated. And here I want to highlight one drug, such drug, very commonly used and very well-known drug, rosuvastatin. So we know that rosuvastatin, or the statins in general, they cause rhabdomyolysis when given at a higher starting doses. So this was then analyzed, and rosuvastatin was started at a very low dose. But this is a recent information that rosuvastatin and ticagrelor, which is an antiplatelet drug given for a thromboembolic prevention, prophylaxis, when they are given together, they cause rhabdomyolysis due to drug-drug interactions. So because of this, we come to know that we should be very cautious in prescribing these two drugs together, or if possible, we should avoid this. So all these is the impact of the pharmacovigilance and the risk minimization measures which are taken by the industry or by the regulatory, and this is through the continuous pharmacovigilance. So saying this, we are saying risk, and withdrawal ban. But can we say pharmacovigilance only assesses the risks or identifies risks? No. Pharmacovigilance, the basic of pharmacovigilance is benefit risk analysis, or analyzing the benefit risk profile of the drug. So I would say, can adverse effect be can adverse effect become a benefit? So I would say yes. And a classic example would be minoxidil. So as we all know, for those who know or don't know, minoxidil was all actually approved for as an antihypertensive drug, but it had its own effects. But one side effects which was noted was the hair growth. So then after that, minoxidil was then formulated and developed as a drug for alopecia. So both male and female hair loss, minoxidil was used. So we can say that pharmacovigilance not only prevents people from having risk, but it also provides more options, beneficial effects to people by this way, that is having one other treatment choice. And this was only through the pharmacovigilance, that is the safety monitoring. So to summarize and conclude, I would say pharmacovigilance as a science is ever evolving. That is, from older days where we didn't know much information, and now with we having a lot of information and practices in pharmacovigilance, we have a lot of things. So it is evolving, and even now it has evolved a lot, and even now it is evolving. And also, when we have effective pharmacovigilance measures, this will result in leveraging the benefits and also reducing the risk of the drugs to the patients. So with many newer drugs come to the market, so every day there are lots of drugs which is being approved by many other regulatories in the country over the globe. But with the diligent PV practices, we can have early identification and early effective management of the risks. So finally, I would like to conclude by saying that awareness and adoption of PV by all the stakeholders will always lead to a better tomorrow. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening to my presentation.
Excellent presentation, Dr. Shobana. I think this cannot be said in a better way. You started from the history, what we were lacking in those days, and what kind of knowledge we gathered at which point of time, and what were the limitations of such knowledge, and whether such knowledge really helped us reduce the risk and improve or if not improve, leverage the benefits associated with the medicinal product. So that all that you brought out very well. Especially I like the fact that sulfanilamide gave a result that we need to have animal experiments. But the thalidomide happened even though we had animal experiments, because in animals it was not the teratogenicity was not seen. So and you rightly mentioned in the end that pharmacovigilance as a science is very much evolving. It is of course it's any science is evolving for that matter, but pharmacovigilance, the interesting point is that I also wanted to add one more point to what Vidya said. Like we used to say that this $1 billion and is it almost 20 years to to bring a drug to the market. Incidentally, that we have recently, as a scientific community, we all have proven it wrong very recently. That with the pace at which we have developed COVID vaccines, and how soon we are kind of we have. I wouldn't say we have totally overpowered COVID, but without such vaccines coming into picture very soon, I don't think we would have been able to at least come to where we are today in terms of control of the pandemic. So not to say that Vidya's slide was incorrect. The thing is, it is still correct from a conventional point of view. And unless we think out of the box and unless we come out with a multi-pronged approach. In fact, WHO had to release a video to tell how this reduction of the drug development time did not mean compromise in the safety monitoring of the product. So that much this image is there in our mind that it will take a long time, and it will take huge. Of course, cost is still there, but the time element. Of course, we must remember today we have technology which we did not have, say, even 50 years ago or 100 years ago. And a lot of that technology is coming into play where it is helping us shorten that drug development time. And I hope in future this will also add to a lot of benefit. Having said that, the last point that Dr. Shobana made, that with new drugs pouring into the market, because as if old drugs we have understood them completely, that itself is a question mark. See, even today we are having safety alerts now and then for paracetamol and age-old drugs like that. Although it is not very common, but we still have such reports coming now and then. So it is not right to say that we know everything about old drugs, but at least we can safely say that obviously about 80% of their benefit risk profile we have understood. But for the new drugs which are coming in, it will take time. So we have seen from the examples that initially drugs which were thought to be wonder drugs actually showed their true colors only after some time. So it is like monitoring is the key, and time actually reveals so many things about not only people but about drugs also. So we have to be cognizant of that fact. So given that, we come to the end of the presentations, and thanks to both the speakers for wonderful presentations. I hope what we anticipated as the benefit that the audience would get by listening to two different but complementary viewpoints, not competing viewpoints. I hope that was really helpful. And now we are, I think it is, we can spend some time for discussing any questions we have. And so over to you, Priyadarshini. Do you have any questions? Like, Priyadarshini is one of the co-hosts, and she's pharmacovigilance specialist with Oviya MedSafe. So she's helping as a co-host today to collate all the questions. So over to you, Priyadarshini.
Thank you, sir. So there are a few questions for the speakers. So we'll move on to the questions. So the first question is to Dr. Shobana. Doctor, do you think what do you think regarding the scope of PV? PV to cover the medication errors. If so, what are the type of medication errors?
Okay, thank you. And to answer your question, yeah, medication error, we have a lot of medication errors happening even today in and out. But it may be simple without any adverse effect, without affecting the patient. But this should be reported. That is, it has a lot of scope in PV in saying that even medication errors needs to be monitored, because medication error in itself, it is a preventable or unavoidable harmful effect to the patient because of the error in the medication.
Dr. Shobana, you've gone mute.
Sorry, sir. Thank you. So that I was saying that medication error in itself is defined as an unavoidable or we can say a preventable harm that is caused to the patient due to the drug or either by prescription or administration or dispensing. So in itself, it answers the types question, that is the types of medication error. So we have medication error. So the major types would be prescribing error, administration error, dispensing error, and also which one is called as omission error. Prescription error is mostly when the prescription is either we can say not only it is improper, that is illegible because of the handwriting, which everyone complains, that is the doctor's handwriting is not clear. But the other part which needs to be seen is the drug which is being prescribed, whether the right drug at the right dose and right route is prescribed. So that is one thing which has to be taken into account. So in this way, prescription error occurs when the selection of the drug is incorrect, or for that particular patient. I'm saying that for the particular patient, or the dose or the route or the frequency, the dosage is incorrect anywhere. So if that is incorrect, then this may lead to a medication error. So this may lead to adverse effects. So this is preventable, right? So only if it is monitored through PV, we can prevent all these. So the same way with the dispensing error, where the dispensing error may be mainly with the lookalike sound-alike drugs, which the drugs which have similar names or similar familiar looks or similar looks. So that's one thing which is very confusing. So we can prevent all these by a very legible printing, very patient reading of the drugs, not in very haste. The pharmacist takes and gives it. So that should not be there. And also a proper management of all the drugs. So that is one thing. The other one will be the administration, proper storage. So proper storage, proper formulation is also very important. So because even the storage part, when it is not proper, for example, vaccine. So every vaccine has a point where it should be stored properly at this temperature, at this place, at this degree. So if that is not maintained, then the drug may become precipitated, the vaccine, and if that is not noted, and it may lead to medication error. So that is about dispensing error. And the other thing will be administration error, which, as I said, when the drug is not stored properly, or when the administering person, whomever it may be, they are not seeing the expiry date of the drug, or they are not seeing whether the physical property of the drug is not altered, or they are using incorrect techniques or improper techniques, and the wrong administration. As I said, the lookalike, sound-alike drugs. So the wrong administration, these all may lead to errors, and these are all preventable, and only during the monitoring these may be possible. So yes, definitely medication error, whether it is with adverse event or it doesn't cause any adverse event, it should be notified and it should be mitigated through proper monitoring. Hope this answers your question.
Yes, sure. Thank you, doctor. Thank you for your valuable answer.
Thank you, Dr. Shobana and Priya. So before we go further with the questions, do we have any comments from any of the co-hosts on Dr. Shobana's presentation? Anything you would like to add before going to the further questions?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Actually, I have. I'm Dr. Vidhya, working as a medical safety associate in Oviya MedSafe. First, I would thank Dr. Shobana for giving a fabulous speech on role of pharmacovigilance in ensuring patient safety. Here, I would like to add few other examples to the adverse event becoming a benefit of the drug. The first example which strikes my mind now is metformin. So metformin is an anti-diabetic agent that is used for the treatment of type 2 diabetes mellitus. And loss of appetite is one of the side effects of metformin. Later, it becomes a benefit of metformin as it helps in weight loss of obese and overweight diabetic patients. And also, studies are being conducted to examine the efficacy of metformin to find whether it is helpful in reducing weight loss in non-diabetic patients also. And another example is finasteride. So finasteride is an anti-androgenic agent that was first developed as a drug for benign prostate hyperplasia. And increased hair growth due to the use of finasteride was observed later. The mechanism behind it is nothing but finasteride, it inhibits 5-alpha reductase enzyme, and it also blocks testosterone from converting into dihydrotestosterone. So based on this mechanism, the increased hair growth happens due to finasteride. And in December 1997, FDA gave approval to finasteride for treating male pattern baldness. So these examples prove that pharmacovigilance plays a vital role in risk-benefit balance of the drug, and in turn that helps in patient safety. So with this, I conclude here, and I'll hand over to you, sir. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Vidya. I think these examples are really very relevant. So nice of you to have added this. So anyone else?
Yes, sir, of course, I have. So thank you, Vidya, for your valuable points. I would like to add few facts relevant to this topic. I am Hema, working as a pharmacovigilance specialist from Oviya MedSafe. In order to a patient safety, World Health Organization introduced mobile application, which is called as a MedSafety, with Uppsala Monitoring Center and the UK Medicines and Healthcare Product Regulatory Agency. This app enables the healthcare professionals and patients to report a suspected adverse reactions directly to the national authorities database. A MedSafety app is launched in 9 countries and World Health Organization is preparing to roll out in some more countries. So those 9 countries named as Armenia, Botswana, Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Ethiopia, Ghana, Uganda, and Zambia. This app also allows the public and the healthcare providers to learn about the medicine safety news from South African Health Products Regulatory Agency, thereby creating an awareness of medicines, their potential adverse effects, and pharmacovigilance. I hope this information is useful to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Hema. I think that was a very good insight from what is happening around the globe. And one point about pharmacovigilance, which is always fascinating, is that it is applicable for each and every person, each and every country. Wherever you have people taking medications, there you have different kinds of regulations. And there have been several methods to also improve pharmacovigilance awareness and the uptake of the activities, the promotional activities for reporting adverse events and all that. Every country and every region has tried something different, and it is an ongoing journey. And a lot of countries have been very successful. Some are trying to do it in a different way. And we must all remember that every country has its own cultural, and every country is different for that matter. Not just country, even within the same country, you may have different variety of people, and even between 2 states in a country, things might be different. So a lot of action at the central, state level, local levels. So much of action is required for pharmacovigilance to become more effective, especially from an understanding and application of the pharmacovigilance reporting activities in all aspects, not just from an industry perspective. In all aspects, if you look at pharmacovigilance reporting, for it to be effective, we have to think globally, but we'll have to act locally. So thanks, Hema. So I give it back to Priyadarshini for any further questions.
Thank you, sir. We have one more question from one of our audience. So the question is, with more than 100 patents expiring in the next 2 to 3 years and increasing penetration of social media even in the rural areas, any thoughts on off-label use in pharmacovigilance for the people?
Okay, that's quite a loaded question. I really appreciate the person who has sent this question because it talks about 2 different areas. So first, let's look at the part pertaining to the drugs going off patent. So when drugs go off patent, what it means is that until the patent period is over, only the company which has researched and developed the molecule can have exclusive rights over the product, and either it manufactures directly or it licenses somebody to manufacture, but nobody else can manufacture without license from that company. So that's what a patent practically means. There are so many other aspects, but when you talk about off patent, what is important is once it goes off patent, anybody can kind of manufacture and distribute the drug, of course, with a license for the manufacturing, obviously, that they'll have to take it from the respective regulatory authority. But there is no hold that they cannot manufacture this drug because it is patented or it is a research molecule of a different company. So how does that impact pharmacovigilance? So first thing is like when drugs go off patent, there are many companies would come to produce that. So which means that the drug becomes much more accessible to different parts of the world. So the first thing is like that's like when you have a company in monopoly, like it may or may not reach different parts of the world. And second aspect is it is expected to become less expensive, and therefore the expectation is that it could become more affordable. So more accessible, more affordable, more available, and all these things could increase. But how does that have a bearing on pharmacovigilance? Directly, if you ask, there is no bearing, because for whether it is it's a new drug or whether it is an established drug, it is the pharmacovigilance requirements are the same. So there is not much of a difference in that way. But the indirect difference is that every company that is going to manufacture this drug, they will have to have proper pharmacovigilance systems in place. So that is one another obligation that comes along with it. And unless we have a proper system to monitor, it is difficult to gather all the safety data. So having said that, when you have data coming from different points, the possibility of the data being kind of isolated from one group or one type of patients or one geographical area, that becomes diluted. And that's one of the reasons why when drugs go off patent and the drugs become so widely available, the true safety profile of a drug even improves like after that. Like only after that you come to know. And one more aspect from off patent is that the drug is available for clinical trials and other indications as well. So there the drug repurposing and all that comes into the picture. Drug repurposing can also be based on existing adverse event profile, like how Dr. Shobana mentioned about this the minoxidil. It can be in that way also. So that is regarding the off-label. So what was the second part of the question, Priyadarshini?
Just a minute. Off-label use in any thoughts on off-label use in pharmacovigilance?
Yeah, off-label. Okay. So off-label is different from off-patent. So off-patent, I've explained just now. So off-label is something where a drug is meant to be indicated for a different condition. And if it is used in a different way for a medical purpose, that becomes off-label use. And it should be obviously used by a medical person. Otherwise, it becomes drug misuse. So the medical person uses it for a medical reason, say eye drops being used as ear drops. So those kind of things you can call that as off-label use. So off-label use is not necessarily linked to off-patent use because even a drug which is on patent can be used as off-label use. It's the discretion of the HCP who's using it. So, but having said that, when I just mentioned about drug repurposing is more to do with the benefits which have been identified in off-patent, off-label use that can be serving as indications for further drug repurposing, and that could lead to more research about the drug, and that will further define the benefit risk profile of the drug. So what we must remember is, I'm again and again saying benefit risk profile. I'm not saying we understand the risks of a drug better. We understand the benefits of a drug also better only when when time keeps on passing. So new benefits can also be identified with the ongoing pharmacovigilance. And I hope both the aspects of off-patent and off-label I have covered.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So we have another question from the audience. So the question is, if there are 10 patients mentioned with the 3 criteria in a single literature source, shall we create 10 cluster cases for the same? Is there any guidance document for creating cluster cases?
Okay, that's a wonderful practical question. So who wants to take it, Dr. Shobana or Vidya, who wants to take it?
Okay, sir. I'll answer to this question, sir. So
Yes,
if
Vidya.
the literature consists of 10 cases, means we have to check the individuality. Means if the article consists of the 10 patient identifiability, like age or date of birth or like
Age group.
rash, ethnicity, we have to age group also. So we have to check whether if you can able to identify the individuality of the patient, so you can create it as a 10 different ICSR. Coming to answer to your question, cluster case means that is a company policy. So here the company have to decide whether it can be go it as a cluster case. Even more, some companies used to do, they will create it as a single case, then make it as a non-valid. So I will keep it in the database. So once they'll go for a follow-up with the corresponding author, if can able to get the individual patient details, they can create it as a 10 different cases, or until otherwise, this will be documented in the database as an invalid case. So that is a process generally industry used to do. I hope I have answered to your question.
Thank you,
Thank
Vidya. I think there is one more sub question in that. Is there any
Same
guidance
scenario.
documents for creating cluster cases?
No, sir, there is no specific documents because generally we are following the regional and country specific guideline, and this cluster, especially for cluster case creation, we don't have any specific guidance document in EMA as well as our US FDA guidelines also.
Thanks, Vidya. Priyadarshini, you can go ahead with the further question.
Yes, Ms. Vidya, we have another question in the same scenario. So I like you to answer the same question. So in other scenario, if 3 male patients and 3 female patients with other valid criteria are mentioned in the source, are we creating 6 clear cases from the source?
Yes, of course. You have to create it as a 6 valid ICSR because you got the individuality. Means it's while talking about the individual case safety report means it talks about the individual patient. So here we it's very clear 3 male patients and 3 female patients experienced adverse effect. So in that scenario, you have to create it as a 6 individual ICSR that should be submitted to the authority. So if it is individuality of the patient is very clear means here you can't go with the cluster case. It's a non-compliance. If you're creating such a cluster case means it will become a non-compliance to the regulations. So definitely you have to create it as a 6 different ICSR. Hope you got a clear about the processing of ICSR.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vidya.
Thanks, Vidya.
Priya.
Anybody, Dr. Shobana particularly, do you want to add any point to that?
Sir, I would add that one thing is whether we can consider it's only male patient, so only the gender is there. So whether we can consider that has been a debate. I would say any patient initial, whether it is initial or whether it is gender or age, anything can be considered as patient information. So in that way, we can consider that as valid.
So, Priyadarshini, to complete that answer, if this can be developed into a company-specific convention, and we can decide based on that, so to avoid ambiguity in the decision making, because 10 people working in an organization should not make 10 different interpretations. So effectively, if we don't have a guidance document from a regulatory agency or from a neutral agency like WHO or say ICH or CIOMS, what we tend to do is we tend to have a guidance document, like how we have such many such guidance documents in Oviya MedSafe itself, like for specific scenarios where it is not clear in regulatory norms as to how to interpret such things. What we do is we create a company document considering all aspects, and we keep that as a convention. We don't usually make it as an SOP because it will become too rigid. But having that as a convention, like this is usually how we will deal with such situations. If we have that as a norm, and as long as it does not violate any known regulatory requirement or any specific point mentioned in any of the known global guidance documents, it is very much acceptable. And even in audits, it is better to have something written as a guidance document and as an internal guidance or convention to be followed, rather than having no document at all, but having different interpretations made in different cases. So that is how we usually deal with such scenarios. I hope this answer is satisfying.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable answer. I think it will be helpful for the people audience. Sir, the last question. The last question is for you only, sir. So, can you tell what are the unique challenges of PV in India, sir?
Okay, so I know that we are kind of running out of time. So let me try to be very brief, and we'll close with this question in respect of everyone's time. Yeah, India pharmacovigilance is specifically very unique in certain aspects, because number one, we have a very large population. So being the second largest country in the world in terms of population itself is a kind of a challenge, because we cannot apply something like a one size fits all. Like a small country which implements a program and gets it done throughout the country, it's not easy to do replicate such a thing in India, because sheerly out of the large population, the number of people who consume drugs are also high, number of sick people are high, number of hospital been treated patients are high. So it's very difficult to actually collect this information in the first place. Second thing is we have a huge ethnic diversity. Like each state, we all have come from this linguistic states. So we have this linguistic state concept. So linguistic also is intertwined with ethnic differences as well. So we all know that as pharmacology professionals, we know that there is ethnic diversity in the kinetics and dynamics, and it is not that every population responds to every drug in the similar way. And then there are socioeconomic disparities, like you have a certain requirement for a drug to be taken regularly for this many days. Probably the patient is not able to afford that drug, or sometimes they don't have there's a certain cultural challenges are there, so they don't take a drug when it is supposed to be taken or in the way it is taken. This may not be coming out very easily. It is not an ideal scenario where we see patients as well. Doctors are also very busy. So such things, very simple things like whether this insulin was given intradermally or subcutaneously, was there any mistake in that? All that to identify, we need a lot of time that no physician in India has. So that is one thing. And the difference in disease patterns is that every disease pattern is different in different place. And a very, very unique area is that we have traditional systems of medicines, the Ayush medicines also in India. And sometimes people take both the medicines, many a time not telling the doctor. The Ayush doctor may not be knowing about the patient taking a modern medicine drug or the vice versa. So that is also a challenge because the drug interactions is very difficult to identify when you have a cross system drugs being taken. And if you want to implement data collection programs also, like in the UK, if you have the NHS, it is through the NHS you kind of deploy this yellow form, and there is one single system through which you can collect most of the safety information. But in India, we have different types of healthcare systems. Government hospitals are there, directly run by the government. Then you have private hospitals where insurance payment is there, then self-paying patients are there. And then you have certain scenarios where corporate patients where the employer pays for the employee's health. So, and so you have different databases. So there is no single database which tells you how in one, in one network, you cannot collect most of the safety data. You will get a large chunk of data, but that will be still small considering India's size. And that way, these are very, very unique challenges. And in this way, I would like to place on record my immense appreciation for the Pharmacovigilance Program of India, especially in the last 11 years after the Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission has taken over as the national coordinator. They've done an excellent job. Lot more job is to be done considering the Indian population, but still what they have achieved within this 11 years is phenomenal. And thanks for asking this question. I wanted to say this somewhere. So this is a very important aspect. India, as a contributor to pharmacovigilance, is doing a lot in terms of global PV industry being headquartered in India, and a lot of work we are doing for the globe in India. And also a lot of Indian pharmacovigilance activities has also improved in the last 11 years because of consistent efforts by all the stakeholders. So maybe it makes sense to conclude my summing up session by saying that pharmacovigilance of the pill is definitely for the people, and people have benefited throughout. And in a way, pharmacovigilance growing as a very good field has also implemented people in the sense, implemented, I should have said, impacted people in a positive way, in a different sense also, because there are so many people working in pharmacovigilance today. Pharmacovigilance as a career is a huge thing in India today, and throughout the world, we are seeing that a lot of development is happening because of people taking up careers in pharmacovigilance. So that way, pharmacovigilance is kind of gives us so many things, and we just have to give only one thing to that: the genuineness in the cause of reporting our adverse reactions that we encounter at every level, as Vidya mentioned in the beginning, starting from the patient telling the doctor until the regulatory, the pharma company telling the regulator, and it's a vicious cycle, and the cycle has to be positive for everyone to be benefited out of it. So thank you so much for your patience to all the audience here today, which includes some learned, experienced professionals as well. And I hope it was helpful for all of you. So with this, I complete my sum up, and I hand over to Karthik for the vote of thanks and closure.
Thank you, sir. Pharmacovigilance of the pill for the people. What a wonderful title, and how beautifully our team chiseled and presented it. I sincerely appreciate all the speakers and co-hosts, and also the audience who asked the questions to make this more session more knowledgeable. I hope you all received a lot more information from this session. And if you still believe that you have some additional questions within you, you will definitely get the answers from us. As I said in the beginning, you please post your questions in our email ID, info@oviyaMedSafe.com. And I'm just thinking, considering this webinar, success of this webinar, we believe that we have given our best. We thought of, uploading this webinar in our official YouTube channel. So we are also thinking to add some more additional videos about this domain now and then. So I request you to subscribe, click the subscribe button and the bell button to receive such information in the near future. And once again, I sincerely appreciate you for taking your time and coming and listening to us. And thank you so much. Thank you so much once again. And reach out to us for any of your questions, or even if your organization have any needs on pharmacovigilance, we are there always for you to help you. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.